All right, welcome back to our 1990 music recap. This is part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1, definitely do so. We're on April 3rd, the debut studio album by In Vogue. Approximately 3,000 women attended auditions held in 1988 to be a part of In Vogue. We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
Born to Sing is a debut album from funky quartet In Vogue. It's a very good album with a few outstanding songs on it, mainly Hold On and Lies. The rest is listenable, but not quite as effective as these two brilliant tracks.
In Vogue is definitely a group I remember well from my childhood, and I remember one of those things I liked about them. Aside from their powerhouse vocals was that they knew how to exude personality in their performances and turn even the most average songs into ones that were quite enjoyable. In Vogue has sold over 20 million albums worldwide today. Behind the Mask is the 15th studio album by British American rock band Fleetwood Mac, released April 10th in 1990. The cover for the album was created by photographer Dave Gorton. He stated that the band did not wish to appear on the front cover of the album. The album cover earned a Grammy nomination in 1991 for Best Album Package. It's probably because their ugly asses weren't on the cover, right? We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
Don't know what to say about this except express my mammoth disappointment. Tango in the Night was better than anyone had the right to expect of Fleetwood Mac, and to have those tight economical songs and super smart production replaced by this flaccid OAR buried in the worst kind of FM rock production that will set your teeth on edge is beyond sad. The songwriting is banal as well, the record only becoming moderately listenable when Christine McVie appears.
This is a very weird album. My first experience listening to Fleetwood Mac, but I don't think I'll be returning. The album starts with a few overly cheesy positive message songs like Sky's the Limit, which are fine in their own right, but the lyrics can be just a tad bit too much, bumping into that cheese category. Then you get this really dark shift on the third track for 7 minutes, and then it builds up super mysterious and devilish dark tones, releasing on the second half a bit of a rock ballad. Then we get a bunch of sappy love songs you would expect to find at the dollar store bundled up 3 CDs for $1. It's not only a really incoherent, messy album that struggles to find any sort of cohesion, but what is present here on an individual track-by-track basis doesn't work. Following the album's release and subsequent world tour, band members Stevie Nicks and Rick Vito left the band, though Nicks would rejoin in 1997. BuzzFeed interesting facts about Fleetwood Mac.
Santana's Black Magic Woman was originally a Fleetwood Mac song.
Well, that's actually kind of big because that was his only real big song until he got the Matchbox 20 guy to come out and do some shit, right?
Really?
Well, I mean, how many Santana songs do you know before?
I don't listen to. That was pretty good. Do you know any other songs by Santana?
Yeah.
Okay. The Muppet Show's Animal is rumored to be inspired by Mick Fleetwood. Founding member Peter Gordon left the band for religious reasons. I want to lead a freer and more selfless life along Christian principles. The band has had a total of 15 members since its inception.
Good God.
It's a lot of members. More than 1 in every 6 households in the United States owns a copy of the album Rumors.
That's kind of crazy when you think about it.
A little crazy.
Not this household.
Yeah, not my household either. So we are 2 out of the 6 that don't own.
Yeah. Same day as Fleetwood Mac released, we see a similar group release their third album, Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy. Fear of a Black Planet features elaborate sound collages that incorporate varying rhythms, numerous samples, media sound bites, and eccentric loops, reflecting their song's confrontational tone. It means they're pissed off, Badger. Recorded during the golden age of hip-hop, its assemblage is reconfigured and recontextualized. Good God, I shouldn't be drinking. Its sources preceded the sample clearance system that later emerged in the music industry. Fear of a Black Planet explores themes of organization and empowerment within the black community, social issues affecting African Americans, Sean, and race relations at the time. The record's criticism of institutional racism, white supremacy, and the power elite was partly inspired by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's view on color. The singles from Fear of a Black Planet were Fight the Power, yeah, Welcome to the Terror Dome, 911 is a joke, Brother's gonna work it out, and Can't Do Nothing for You, Man. Let's go to some Rate Your Music user reviews.
Angry men shouting over forgettable funky beats.
Flavor Flav should stick to being a hype man, but Chuck D has the power in his voice to whip one up into a frenzy. Having said that, he rarely uses it into his advantage. In my opinion, most of the album is pretty forgettable. The Bomb Squad production undoubtedly has charm, but there's just something seriously lacking about the whole, and it gets very tiresome very quickly. It's certainly not timeless. In fact, it feels so late 80s, early 90s that it hurts. Fight the Power is the only real highlight.
I appreciate what Public Enemy does here, and I can enjoy it up to Power of the People. But the rest of the album completely loses me, and that's half an album. I don't know how people really enjoy this so much when something like Who Stole the Soul sounds so backwashed and lame.
Fear of a Black Planet also helped popularize political subject matter in hip-hop music. Facts 5 had facts on Flavor Flav.
Flavor Flav net worth is estimated to be around $3 million. He is fluent in playing 15 different instruments. He was in and out of jail.
Skin flute.
Oh, he can play the skin flute?
Yeah.
You got his number?
Yeah.
He was in and out of jail in high school. Okay, that's most population anymore. He was very notorious when he was a teenager getting into fights. As he was a child, he had set a house on fire.
Well, that's different. I haven't done that yet.
Okay. You ain't a Marion. He was also in jail for a short amount of time when he was in 11th grade on charges of robbery and burglary.
And a lot of people said Flavor Flav was just really comic foil of Public Enemy. You remember Flavor of Love on VH1 when they were doing all those love shows? Yeah. He's a creepy dude, man.
He's a little different.
Okay, that's such an optimistic way of saying it. 39/Smooth is the debut studio album by American punk rock band Green Day. Released on April 13th, 1990, it was one of the first releases that was on black vinyl. I'm not familiar with vinyl, so it was later released on green vinyl and only 800 copies existed. A CD version of the album has not been made. That's kind of crazy.
A little weird.
That's how far back Green Day goes, which means they had no budget if they were doing that kind of shit. Well, let's see what a Rate Your Music user review had to say.
And so we begin the main discography of Green Day with their debut studio album, 39/Smooth, an album that I didn't hear in full until I was a Green Day fan for some time. For some reason, the band's pre-Dookie material was something that didn't interest me. It was a shame on my part because their stuff from back then is truly excellent. For a band that had only been active for approximately 3 years, comprised of 3 angry, repulsive, drug-addicted punk kids just out of their teenage years, the music here is truly, truly excellent.
Was that like some shade to go with that compliment? Call me lame for liking this album, but when they first started out, they were really good. It's a shame that they couldn't keep up the momentum today, and that the corporate dollar has swayed them so that they can play half-ass shitty music for prepubescent skanks. I have to agree with that guy, actually.
I resemble that statement.
The group was originally named Sweet Children, and Harvey Weinstein. Then the band adopted the name Green Day due to the members' fondness of cannabis.
Oh, well, you know what? Honestly, that explains a lot about them.
It does.
They went from being...
Wake me up when September ends. April 23rd, Metaphysical Graffiti is the 5th studio album by the Dead Milkmen. The album title and cover art parody the 1975 album Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. The band distinguished itself in the hardcore punk rock scene of the early 1980s through its jangly punk sound and sardonic humor delivered with thick Philadelphia accents. Let's go to some Rate Your Music user reviews.
The last decent Dead Milkmen album is rather unfortunate. The good stuff is pretty damn good. The humor becomes very tiresome. But there's just a little too much emphasis on being clever, especially late in the album, and not enough emphasis on giving us a fun, jangly ride on the Milkman retard bus. Still, a pretty worthwhile pickup for a fan.
I feel like I was on an acid trip the whole time listening to this. But since it's something new and fresh that I'm not used to hearing, I automatically took a liking to it, even though it was extremely bizarre.
The band uses druid disguises when traveling to avoid autograph-seeking superfans. Jack Talcum employs a biomechanical third hand for guitar solos that was designed and built by Elon Musk.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
When the Dead Milkmen logo is held upside down and viewed in a mirror, you can see hidden messages.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's making me, more interested in the band.
Yeah, we need to pull up a logo. The band employed a team of trained circus squirrels to operate the revolving Leslie speaker in the studio while recording the new album.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little nutty. No pun intended. Bassist Dandrew Stevens is a noted American judicial system scholar. He has written several best-selling books about Roy Cohn and the McCarthy Crusade against communism. They were able to hype themselves up on the charts using 1,000 Congolese schoolchildren.
This is interesting. Go ahead and read this next part. It is fucking kind of funny.
They recruited 1,000 Congolese schoolchildren in early 1989 and got them to repeatedly call Dial MTV to request the Punk Rock Girl video, successfully hyping it up the charts.
Isn't that crazy?
Man.
Nowadays, you'd be scrutinized to all hell for doing that.
Oh, yeah, you'd be considered a cheater.
Other artists who released albums in April with Afghan Wigs, Suzanne Vega, Celtic Frost, Bathery, Barry Manilow, The Sundays, and A Tribe Called Quest. May 8th, Wilson Phillips released their self-titled debut. The singles Hold On, Release Me, and You're in Love all hit number 1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 singles chart. Impulsive reached number 4, and the 5th single, The Dream Is Still Alive, reached the top 20. The album sold 5 million copies in the U.S. and over 10 million worldwide. The group consisted of Carney Wilson, Wendy Wilson, and China Phillips, the daughters respectively of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys and of John and Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas. The Wilson sisters and Phillips grew up together in SoCal in the 1970s and 80s. The three shared a love of music and songwriting and developed their own style of vocal harmonies. Rate Your Music user review.
It's hard for me to believe that two of these women are related to the greatest musical genius of modern times. All I hear are cliches and typical girly pop. There's no genius here, or even anything slightly unique. Their voices are technically good, but again, nothing that really stands out. Basically, there is no meat.
Sometimes it's nice to go down for a stroll on memory lane and remember the embarrassingly bad things that I've owned in the past. Here we have 3 young women who can really barely sing. China's voice sounds nasally at best at times, and the other 2 were used as harmonizers due to the fact that they were considered less attractive. I think they were one of those bands that were just in the right place at the right time. Everyone was tired of New Kids on the Block, and a less than talented girl band was free to step in and take the reins, gearing themselves to a now older market. Woo! In July of 2016, Wilson Phillips performed on ABC's Greatest Hits. In 2017, the group performed on the season finale of NBC's The New Celebrity Apprentice. Tattooed Millionaire was released by Bruce Dickinson, the first solo album from Iron Maiden's vocalist. The album project began when Dickinson was asked to record a song for A Nightmare on Elm Street 95, The Dream Child, and so wrote Bring Your Daughter to the slaughter. Dickinson began creating a solo album which was fundamentally different from his works with Iron Maiden, with a hard rock sound that is less progressive. We go to some user reviews.
First solo album from Iron Maiden singer Bruce Dickinson, and the result is sort of a mixed bag. It's a decent rock metal album, the kind of which you would expect from the 80s to 90s transition years, but this material today really shows its age and lacks any sort of lasting impact. As a matter of fact, none of the songs on this album became anywhere close to classics. I think that when Bruce does his solo material live, he rarely pulls anything from this album. Not actively bad, but long forgotten. I don't think anyone really cares.
In 2015, Dickinson underwent 7 weeks of chemotherapy and radiation therapy for a cancerous tumor found at the back of his tongue. Dickinson's medical team expected him to make a full recovery as the tumor was discovered in the early stages. May 15th, Lock Up the Wolves by Dio, their 5th studio album. The song Evil on Queen Street takes its title from a deli in Toronto, which had a sandwich of that name. We go to some Rate Your Music user reviews on this Dio album.
Ronnie singing the same old song here. It seems that they're just wasting their time to deal with this nonsense. Boring and no good. Moreover, it's hard to find something remarkable on this album. Try listening to the disgusting backing vocals on Born on the Sun for proof. Needless to say, the band's politic of revolving doors lineup is just killing them. Typical, an empty shell of an album.
This one bored me, so I've probably only bothered with it a few times. The slow and stomping title track is cool, probably the doomiest thing he's done since Sabbath. The rest of it is tolerable but uninspired trad metal, with the little man in fine form vocally, but running out of ideas. Badger, I didn't want to bring this up. You're a short fella.
What are you saying?
I'm talking about your height. I mean, other parts of you are just
okay.
Fucking massive. But
massive. There's that word again.
So I went to VH1.com, had a piece on the shortest heavy metal gods. And we're going to go over some of these guys that you didn't realize were midgets, that were fucking dwarfs. You know what I mean? Like you, Badger.
Fuck. So these are the top 10 pint-sized powerhouses.
Is that their words?
That's their words. These are pint-sized powerhouses.
Is that what you like to be called?
Preferably.
Oh, okay.
10 shortest heavy metal gods. Kerry King.
I know, he's supposed to be this wicked badass, right? Satan 666. I fucking spray pentagons or pentagrams with my dicks. Whatever.
Okay, well, he may be saying 666, but he's only 5'6".
Oh, is that what he's saying?
Yeah.
This whole time, I
I'm
thought he
5'6".
5'6". 5'6". Year of Satan.
Are you a Slayer fan?
No, absolutely not. I don't like it.
I think I might have heard some Slayer songs in the past, but I don't think I ever really got into
Rain and Blood or something like that.
Yeah. They've got some weird stuff out there.
No, I don't care for Slayer. I like actually heavier shit than that. Slayer's like Backstreet Boys for heavy metal. Sorry, Kerry King, don't.
Slayer's back, all right.
Don't. Satan's back, oh yeah.
Number 9 on the list, Satan himself, Lars Ulrich.
Yeah, that guy's a douchebag, though.
He's kind of douchey after the
He's
whole...
always been well, starting with the Napster thing, I think he came out as douchey. I get the Napster thing, but he's like an entitled little douche, man. He is a douche.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about anything after the Napster.
Well, wasn't he one of the main... Well, he put the band together, right? He was the first one that contacted James Hetfield. But Lars Ulrich, Metallica, 5'6".
5'6".
Napoleon Complex. Fuck that
shout.
guy. Number 8, Scott Ian with the band Anthrax. Also 5'6".
Okay.
He's just a little guy. Now, a little interesting story. Scott Ian put out a memoir in 2014 called I'm the Man. The story of that guy from Anthrax.
He is the man.
He is the man. So in the book, The 5.5-foot band mastermind Ian decries an early career decision made by then-singer Neil Turbin, writing, "The biggest dick move Neil ever pulled was when he fired the original bassist Danny Lilker behind our backs in 1984. The main reason he did it, in my opinion, was because Danny was taller than him. He honestly didn't think someone should be taller than the front man on stage. He thought it made him look bad. So he tried to stand as far away from Danny as possible, which was hard when we were all playing stages the size of ping pong tables." It's kind of interesting. So, number 7.
Yeah.
Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
With the band Iron Maiden, he is also 5'6".
All right.
Number 6, Brian Johnson. Lead man for AC/DC, he is 5'5".
All right. Yeah.
Now, the
tallest guy in AC/DC.
He replaced Bon Scott, AC/DC's original lead singer, and he was a towering 5'8".
Yeah, no, he was. Yeah, that's almost average height for a male.
Number 5 on the list, Danny Filth from the band Cradle of Filth.
I grew up on them. I really loved that band when I was young.
5'5".
Yeah, you could tell that though.
How could you tell that?
Well, when I made love to him, you could really.
Oh,
yeah,
shit. Okay.
It was pretty apparent.
All right. Number
What's
4.
up, Danny?
Number 4, Glenn Danzig from the bands Danzig, Samhain, and the Misfits. Can you guess how tall they stacked this pile of shit?
What was he, 5'5"? 5'4"?
5'4".
Yeah, he's the same stacked shit that you are. But, I mean, he lifts weights. When's the last time you've done that?
Pounding out weights 12 ounces at a time here.
Very true.
Okay.
Well, those are 16.
I've
bro.
upgraded, yeah, so I'm 16 ounces today. Go fuck yourself.
I know.
Number 3, Ronnie James Dio. With the bands Dio, Black Sabbath, Rainbow.
It's just a rainbow.
And Elf.
An Elf, yeah. No, that makes sense.
5'4".
5'4".
Joey Jordison.
Big time drummer,
Slipknot. This guy clocks in at a staggering 5'3".
And like 78 pounds.
Good Lord, go eat a sandwich, dude. Number
Cock
1.
meat sandwich.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, we could all do that. Yeah.
They're in Iowa. We'll come visit you.
No.
Number 1, Angus Young.
Another AC/DC guy.
Another AC/DC guy.
Now the singer was 5'5". How big was the guy dressing like a schoolgirl playing guitar? How tall was he?
He clocks in at 5'2".
Goodness.
But so check this out. So you made a comment before that AC/DC is probably like the shortest band of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are across the board shorter than average for every key member of the band.
Right.
Cliff Williams, the bassist, 5'7".
Yeah, okay.
Phil Rudd, the drummer, 5'6".
Yeah.
Brian Johnson, 5'5", the vocalist we mentioned earlier. Malcolm Young, the rhythm guitarist, 5'3". Yeah, and Angus Young, 5'2". So none of these guys are over 5'7".
Isn't that crazy though?
And they are.
You've been midget struck. Flick your balls.
Dio's career spanned more than 50 years. During this period, and particularly in the 21st century, he received a number of distinctions and awards. May 22nd, the Pretenders released Packed, the 5th album by the band. Besides band leader Chrissy Hindy, no other person is pictured anywhere within the album package. At the time the album recorded, the only remaining official member of the band's previous album was the drummer, Blair Cunningham, who plays on all tracks, though he is not credited as part of the band, as all other musicians appearing on this album are considered session musicians. Wow. All right. We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
Packed. Locked forever in a battle to the death with Get Close for Worst Pretenders album. Well, Sense of Purpose is the best song on either album, but I'll refrain from declaring a winner and casually look the other way while the discs duke it out.
Last thing I bought by them. Started to lose interest. Some decent cuts here, but not enough to rate any higher than I did. What a shame. Hindi launched a solo career in 2014, and the Pretenders were dormant as a band between 2012 and 2016. However, the Pretenders are once again active. Calm down, Badger. May 29th, Pod was released by The Breeders, their debut album. The Breeders' lead singer is Kim Deal, who is the bassist and backing vocalist for the band The Pixies. The record label they were signed to gave them a budget of $11,000 to make the record. Let's go to some Rate Your Music user reviews.
A strangely compelling album. The production is in shambles. I actually thought this was an album of unfinished demos when I first heard it. I still do, in fact. But through the mire came a selection of sprightly melody snippets, some paint-by-numbers imagery, and it must be said, one truly diabolical Beatles cover. Most of the tracks are over fairly quickly, and I'm sure that they weren't all recorded on the same day, even if they might sound like it.
I love the minimalism of this album. Kim Deal of Pixies fame has one of the sweetest and sexiest voices you'll ever hear, and it complements the music and production values here superbly. I'm a pervert, and the emphasis is on the basis. Simple riffs that just work.
If it's not a massive pop hit, this is the exact type of pop I want and need. A pretty effortless record, pure fun. Not really a classic, but a definition of an album you can play every day. It'll spin a couple of times and you won't even notice, but like it at the same time.
This album was also famously cited by Kurt Cobain as one of his favorite records ever. The main reason I like the Breeders is for their songs, for the way they structure them, which is totally unique, very atmospheric. So that's pretty big praise. I mean, Kurt Cobain was starting to become even... who knows what year that he actually said this, but he was a big deal, man, before something happened to him. Other artists who had albums released in May of 1990 are Billy Idol. Can you sing some Billy Idol?
It was a nice day for a
White
wedding. You see how racist that dude is?
Oh.
Soundgarden, George Strait, not gay. The Ramones, Yanni,
Not gay.
Madonna, gay. And Joe Cocker, which, I mean, what is he trying to prove? What was his real name?
Yeah.
We go to June 5th for Step by Step from the New Kids on the Block, their fourth studio album. At the time of the release, the group was very popular and was being heavily merchandised with everything from pillowcases, marbles, dolls, to a Saturday morning cartoon with their name and likeness. Do you remember any of that, Badger?
Vaguely.
Marbles, cartoons, pillowcases that you slept on? Step by Step went to number 1 on the Billboard 200 and UK album charts, with the lead-off title track single topping the charts simultaneously and selling nearly 3 million copies, making it the highest-selling single. The band consisted of brothers Jordan and Jonathan Knight, Joey McIntyre, Donnie Wahlberg, and Danny Hardiswood. Let's go to a Rate Your Music user review.
The New Kids stab at trying to become more involved in the album they recorded. The end result? Bad pop music with horrid falsetto. Who saw that coming? The boys attempted some degree of maturing, but instead it just seemed even more edgeless. Let's face it. Happy Birthday was just a pathetic attempt to woo fans everywhere who celebrated birthdays in the most generic way possible. Tonight was shameless self-promotion, mentioning previously recorded songs of theirs in the lyrics. Funny Feeling could have been recorded by Alvin and the Chipmunks. They were losing it fast, and these songs being so much weaker than before certainly didn't help anything. Many fans had lost interest, and it was obvious that their career was pretty much as milked as it could get. Joey hit puberty.
So did Badger just now.
Joey hit puberty. The boys were still non-offensive looking, but not exactly tough enough anymore. What a shame.
That's funny. The group performed an estimated 200 concerts a year with an extravagant worldwide concert tour that summer called the Magic Summer Tour. That's fucking creative. It was sponsored by cocaine. Well, Coke. The tour ultimately grossed $74 million, $133 million adjusted for inflation. What the fuck? Who cares? Making the group the top grossing touring act in the country at the time and one of the highest grossing concert tours of the decade. That's pretty impressive, actually. The tour had an overall audience of 3.2 million people. Their 1990 pay-per-view special broke cable TV history at the time. Wow. New Kids on the Block were, I was born in 85. This is 90. I don't even remember them existing. So, they were a big deal?
Yeah, I remember, because I was probably 1990, I was 10.
Yeah.
So,
were they a big deal? You knew of them?
Oh, yeah, I knew of them.
You were aware?
All the girls listened to them, were just head over heels about Donnie and Jordan.
To Mariah Carey's self-titled debut album, its music incorporates a range of contemporary genres with a mix of slow ballads and up-tempo tracks. Although Carey explained that stage fright and the style of her songs made a tour very daunting, speculation grew that Carey was a studio worm and that she was incapable of producing the perfect pitch and 5-octave vocal range for which she was known for. We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
I think Mariah Carey began on a strong note in the early 90s with her self-titled debut, bringing to the table a vocal range that was far different than anything most female singers released in that time. While not as mature as some of her material would come to be, it proves a pleasant listen on the ears in the realm of pop music, provided that this is a genre that you're most orientated towards.
It's no wonder to me that Mariah Carey got a record deal and ended up getting famous. On most of the tracks, she shows a vocal ability that far outweighed the talent of most of the 90s pop stars. It doesn't take distinctive ears to hear the talent, as she in many songs surprises her octave blending additions. Mariah Carey has long been known for her amazing ability to use multiple octaves singing, and that is a talent she uses often on her self-titled album. Mariah Carey was certified 9 times platinum for that album. That's a good start.
Wow. It's very good.
June 26th, Danzig. Oh, Danzig, baby. Mother, tell your children not to unzip my pants. Released his second album, Lucifuge. Before its release, the album had been tentatively, has it, called 777.
All I see is Gary.
Father, do you want to suck a cock with me? And that's called To Flee the Light. Who knows what the editing on this will be like. We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
I guess everyone who follows Glenn Danzig's career eventually reaches a point where his undead Jim Morrison impersonating Elvis in a leather vest routine stops being fun and starts being Sammy. Some never took it even in the hardcore punk glory days of the Misfits. Some were put off by the terror-stricken death rock of Samhain. Some simply didn't dig the Danzig croons over what is basically well-produced but otherwise rather rudimentary, bluesy hard rock formula of the first Danzig album. For my part, I like all those phases of Danzig's career, but I find that a little goes a long way.
First 4 songs aren't bad. Rest is boring. Danzig started on this album with cliche bluesy rock, and it's much worse than his first release. Actually, this is worse than his first 4 albums. Heyo. Music videos were released for the songs Her Black Wings, Killer Wolf, I'm the One, and Devil's Plaything. Glenn Danzig and Vincent Giordano directed all videos aside from Killer Wolf, which was directed by Anton Corbin. The video for I'm the One includes a scene where Danzig wrestles a live alligator. As we know, Danzig's what, 5'4"?
Yeah, 5'4",
So he's like the size of an alligator's tail. There is some more facts about Glenn Danzig. Hit us with it, Badger.
Prior to joining the Misfits, Glenn was a member of two local bands, Talus and Ku Dat and Bujang. He has described
love
the former.
That band, Who Dat and Bujang.
He has described the former as his first real band. He wrote the Misfits song Bullet as a 3-verse poem in 1974, 3 years before the band formed.
Bullet is about Kennedy.
Oh, wow. He's a fan of horror movies and Japanese animation. At label owner Rick Rubin's request, the band name Samhain was changed to Glenn's last name, Danzig, to reflect the change in musical direction. According to the December 2007 issue of Revolver magazine, Glenn is a huge fan of the iconic Swedish pop group ABBA. He has written songs for other musicians, including Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison.
That's interesting. Well, Johnny Cash, I mean, could he write anything, though? I mean, Johnny Cash was this badass trailblazer, right?
He was kind of an outlaw.
Yeah.
He was an outlaw in his days.
At the end of his career, he was a fucking shell of himself.
Well, he lost his gal and...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who could stand that?
Take my part of dirt.
Well, yeah, that wasn't even his song. He didn't write that. It was a Nine Inch Nails song.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, fuck Johnny
I think
Cash.
he had a pretty good relationship with Trent Reznor, though.
Oh, I bet they did. You don't have to tell me. Here, yeah, move on.
Yeah, okay.
Before this gets even.
Glenn produced a self-titled album by King Horse, who opened for Danzig on several shows in 1989.
Don't know who the hell King Horse is.
Me neither. He was a student at Lodi High School, where he graduated in 1973.
Lodi was kind of big. They had some stars come out.
Where the hell's Lodi?
New Jersey, baby.
Is it Jersey?
Jersey.
Okay, fuck Jersey. When he was still in Samhain, Glenn wrote the songs Twist of Cain and Possession, which would appear on Danzig's 1988 self-titled debut album.
Yeah, I like those songs, actually.
Yeah, they're great. He is the owner of Evil Live Records, which has released mostly recordings by the Danzig Band and his own solo albums.
Hey, same day as Danzig's release, Goo from Sonic Youth was released, the band's 6th album. Since Goo was first released, it has been viewed as some of the greatest and most important alternative rock records of all time, as well as a culturally significant work. A critical and commercial success in 1990, Goo received rave reviews from rock music critics. By the end of 90, the album had sold over 200,000 copies and became the band's highest charting album to date in the United States. Let's learn more about Goo, Badger. I mean, 200,000 copies, you know, that really stands up to Mariah Carey's 9 mil. Let's hear some user reviews.
Apparently, Goo is considered to be the place for newcomers to Sonic Youth to begin, as it's deemed one of their more accessible albums. As far as I'm concerned, it proved to be both the beginning and the end. If your idea of fun is experimental song structures, extended feedback, driving beats, and shimmering waves of distortion, then Sonic Youth's brand of pretentious art rock is the music for you. The only thing listening to Goo has achieved is to confirm my initial feelings about the album and reinforce the fact that Sonic Youth are a band I don't want to get to know better.
Very little stands out, and a few tracks are simply laughable. Adding Chuck D to a track is normally a great way to impress me, but damn, he sounds so out of place on Cool Thing. It's ridiculous.
I think Sonic Youth are out to warp your brain at a low level. Sometimes you find yourself thinking, why do we even like this? Yet, you do.
Sonic Youth also appeared on an episode of The Simpsons. They were all animated, looking like fucking Butterfingers, and that's that. The final album we'll discuss in part 2 of this music review is another one in June, and it's Cheap Trick's 11th album, entitled Busted. We go straight to the Rate Your Music user reviews.
Pleasant enough, if forgettable, middle-of-the-road album rock, as ordered up by Cheap Trick's corporate overlords at the time. Somehow, though, the band managed to slip in a Beatles-esque power pop classic at the end of the album.
When you're onto a good thing, stick to it. However, if you're not, you should change pretty damn quickly. This is a humdrum, Cheap Trick album, all too representative of their output throughout much of the 80s. The title track is by far the best song here, but it's not enough to make the album matter.
My least favorite Cheap Trick album. This one is too short with only 8 tracks, and only one track, Wherever Would I Be, was listenable. I only recommend this to die-hard Cheap Trick fans that need this to complete their collection. Since this album has been out of print since God knows when, you'll have a hard time finding a copy that isn't a ridiculous price.
All right, here's some more Cheap Trick facts you might not know.
The group's fame was so big that when they went to Japan, they were met by mobs of fans that led to the media over there dubbing them the American Beatles.
There was a Cheap Trick Day on April 1st. We traditionally celebrate April Fool's Day, but in the state of Illinois, it's not the case. Since 2007, April 1st has been known as Cheap Trick Day in honor of the band that started in Rockford, Illinois in the early 1970s.
Cheap Trick lead guitarist and songwriter Rick Nielsen was featured on a March 11, 2013 episode of the show American Pickers.
Marvel once did a comic book based on Cheap Trick. That's kind of interesting. So they're kind of popularized in that way. Other artists who released albums in June of 1990 are Bad Company, Nelson, Deicide, Crosby, Stills, and Badger, Biohazard, and Robert Clay. All right, to finish this podcast, we're going to go over some events of the first half of the year of 1990. We start with Badger.
January 18th, Eric Clapton plays the first of 18 shows in a 3-week span at London's Royal Albert Hall. On January 21st, MTV's Unplugged is broadcast for the first time on cable television with British band Squeeze.
February 6th, Billy Idol is involved in a serious motorcycle accident, resulting in several broken bones. Idol had been scheduled to have a major role in Oliver Stone's film The Doors, but due to his injuries, the role was reduced almost to a bit part. The role of the T-1000 in Terminator 2 originally was intended for Billy Idol, but it was recast entirely as a result of the accident. That is very fucking interesting, isn't it? Bob Marley's birthday is a national holiday in Jamaica for the first time. February 16th, Ike Turner is sentenced to 4 years in prison for possession of that cocaine.
March 16th, Flea and Chad Smith of Red Hot Chili Peppers are arrested and charged for an incident 2 days earlier at a performance in Daytona Beach during MTV's spring break coverage, in which they allegedly sexually assaulted and verbally abused a female audience member after jumping from the stage. They're released on a $2,000 bail. March 20th, Gloria Estefan's tour bus is involved in an accident. Estefan suffers several broken bones on her back. March 25th, Motley Crue's Tommy Lee is arrested for allegedly exposing his buttocks during a performance in Augusta, Georgia.
I mean, I do that.
Those fucking rednecks.
He exposed more in later years. April 4th, Gloria Estefan's back in the news. She returns to Miami, Florida after undergoing back surgery following the March 20th incident. April 6th, Motley Crue's Tommy Lee suffers a mild concussion after falling off scaffolding above his elevated drum kit during a performance in New Haven, Connecticut. Who knows if he was up there exposing his buttocks?
Probably. That tends to make people a little bit crazy, and then you just fall over. April 7th, Neil Young, Elton John, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, John Mellencamp, Guns N' Roses, and Jackson Browne perform at Farm Aid 4 in Indiana. John dedicates Candle in the Wind to AIDS patient Ryan White during his performance. White dies the following day.
Ooh.
It's kind of...
So you don't want him singing that shit about you. He's the Reaper,
not.
Bro. April 13th, Madonna starts her controversial Blonde Ambition tour in Tokyo, Japan. April 25th, Jimi Hendrix Fender Stratocaster, on which he performed his famous version of the Star-Spangled Banner at Woodstock, is auctioned off in London for $295,000. April 27th, Axl Rose marries model Erin Everly, daughter of singer Don Everly, in a Las Vegas ceremony. Divorce papers are filed on May 24th. That's less than a month. Then filed again in October. So they had some problems, Badger.
Sounds like it. May 29th, in Canada, Toronto police threatened to arrest Madonna if she performs her simulated masturbation scene during her performance of Like a Virgin on her Blonde Ambition tour. Madonna...
Touch for the 34th time.
34,000th
Oh, sorry.
time. Madonna refuses to change her show, and the police decide not to press charges, later denying that they had ever threatened to do so, a claim refuted by footage captured during the filming of Madonna's 1991 documentary, Truth or Dare. June 10th, members of a rap group 2 Live Crew are arrested and charged with obscenity after a performance in a Hollywood, Florida nightclub.
That wraps it up for part 2 of the 1990 music review. Thanks for listening, little bitches, and I hope you continue to listen to part 3.